And we are back dealing with our door hangers. Why am I looking at this picture of a dog with a ball in its mouth on a nice sunny field? It is because I'm going to use this in my door hanger. I am currently in Photoshop, and I need to talk to you about some of the important things that you must consider while dealing with print projects. This is an image that I want in my Illustrator project. The project will be printed. Very important things need to be considered here now. Those are resolution and color mode. Okay, resolution. We've been dealing with a lot of 72 pixels per inch images so far. Well, not even really, because we've been dealing with vector, and that's kind of resolution independent. But for screen work, images are generally used at 72 pixels per inch, which is pretty low resolution. In a print environment, you should have images that are at least 300 pixels per inch, if not higher. It all kind of depends on your print facility and how it will be handled once it leaves your hands. And you'll hear this a lot from many designers and instructors, mentors, whatever. You should always talk to the printer who will be printing the project. Even if you have a client who's asking you to do something, say, hey, where are you getting it printed? And they're saying, oh, we're using Alpha Graphics or whatever. You'll say, okay, do you mind if I contact them to get some specifics to make sure that your job is printed well? Chances are they'll say, awesome, I'm glad that you're so professional and that you care. That's a very good thing. So you will call the print shop and have a conversation and say, hey, I'm working on this door hanger thing. I just want to make sure I've got specifics in order. What resolution and what color space, yeah. For this door hanger project, however, I did say that we are not targeting the 4-color press situation. We are dealing with digital printers. So we're dealing with the color copiers and the inkjet printers and laser printers and whatnot. At that point, it still is a good idea to have a conversation with somebody at that place just to make sure that everyone's on the same page. And it's just one more chance for you to double check your work and make sure that you're on the right page. Because most of you are budding or beginning designers and still haven't had enough of the contact and experience with these moments and operations to really have it be so intuitive, right? So this image is going to be in this this printed door hanger. I need to make sure that my image has the color mode for RGB, because we're dealing with digital printers who have the drivers built in to transfer it to 4-color CMYK print through their inkjet or laser process. That's really important to keep consistent. And I need to look at my image size, which will tell me my resolution. My resolution is 300. And that is a bingo moment. If it's not 300, if it's lower, then you need to find a better image. Don't just say, well, then let's make it 300, because all it's going to do is going to blow up your image without the intricate details of pixel information that you would need to maintain a sharp and gorgeous image. It just sort of fuzzies it up. So if you are gathering content for your work, either stuff that you've shot yourself or stuff that you're getting from another photographer or from your client, that dialogue needs to happen where you specifically say, I need images that are high resolution for print, or if they are at 72, they need to be really large in their pixel dimension to accommodate the upgrade in resolution change of you saying, I want to go from 72 to 300. The information has to be there. If it's not, if you just get a file that's built for the dimension that you're working with and it's lower resolution, it's just not going to work. It's going to look terrible, and it's up to you to take that professional step to say, I need something higher quality, higher res. If you're searching on the internet for material, then you should always try to find images that exceed the 2,000 plus pixel dimensions in width or height. So that's easy to do in the search engines when you Google search images, whatever. There's a search tools thing. You can say, I want to search by large images. And this is something that if you don't understand what it is right now, then you need to train yourself to understand it, because that is a very important asset to a qualified designer. Okay. Now this image is ready as far as my color space and my resolution goes, but I also need to make sure that it's ready as a specific file type. So the file type that must exist in a print document is one that does not go through a heavy compression. And I am, right now, this is already the file type that I'm talking about, which is a TIFF file, T-I-F-F. If you need to save your file as a TIFF file, it's just one of those things where you go save as, and under format here, you will choose, from the whole list here, you're going to choose TIFF. And you choose TIFF because TIFF deals with the least compression and is engineered to be presented as a gorgeous image intended for print. Okay, TIFFs don't appear online. They're never in a web page. They're never sent in an email. You would never see them on a smartphone or an iPad or whatever. TIFFs are built for print. JPEGs, PNGs, etc. Those are intended for communication via screen platforms. However, you can save a JPEG as a 300 pixel per inch file, and sometimes you might be working with a printer who says they want one. It's very important that if you save a JPEG from Photoshop for a printer, that you do it through the Save As feature, not the Save for Web, because Save As will maintain the resolution of the current document, as opposed to the Save for Web, which will dumb it down to 72. Okay, so this file now lives on my computer as a TIFF file and is in RGB space and 300 pixels per inch. If I go to Illustrator, I'm ready to bring it in. I'll go to my blank one here, and I'm going to place, hello, oh, I need to select the right layer. That's what's wrong. I can place that image, and you're here, you're a dog with ball, and it'll say, where do you want to put it? Hey, I don't want that, I want this. It's the problem with that darn trackpad. So it places the image. My image is actually larger than the little door hanger dimensions, which is good because I can then scale this down. But as I scale it down, I know that based on my design idea for this thing, I do not want it to be cut off at all. I want it to exceed and go beyond the boundaries of the cut line. So look at that. You see how it goes all the way to my bleed line? That is something I do when I place it. I place it and I scale it. Maybe I don't need to scale it. Maybe I just use it for what it is. The trees don't matter because I'm going to cut them off. So I now have an image file, and it even tells me up here on my control bar. It's RGB, my pixels per inch, 455. That is probably because I scaled it down. Not a huge deal. If it's above 300, you're good. I wonder if that's what it was. I've never actually noticed that before. Maybe that's a CC thing. It totally is. As I compressed it, its resolution got better. Makes sense. You're squishing those pixels together so you get a more dense, detailed image. Cool. There, I just learned something while I'm trying to teach you something. In the case of the project that I had made here, notice we don't see the whole picture. We just see some of the grass and the outline of the dog. I used a opacity mask. And you can see the mask here was drawn with the pencil tool, where I went along and I traced the edge of the puppy. It wasn't perfect, but it was pretty close. You can see I just kind of went along the ears and stuff and all the hair. It's a door hanger, for crying out loud. It doesn't need to be perfect because it'll probably be thrown in the trash can anyways. Oh, I hope not. But anyways, the opacity mask was used to isolate just the information that I wanted, and I put a nice little curve on the bottom and here on the top, kind of mimicking the lawn that was already there, the hill, but then adding and embellishing a little bit more of that curve. So that's how I isolated the dog here. I could have done it in Photoshop and saved an alpha channel and exported my TIFF with an alpha channel included. That gets a little tricky. It's, you know, if you're a well-seasoned designer, it's not that big of a deal, but I'm not going to go through it. It's easier to just say, I know how to create a mask because we've done it, we've been through it. You experienced that on the midterm. And, you know, why not use a program that has a really great path that you can keep continually editing? You know, if you cut off too much of the ear, just go back over that path again. Then I create a graphic shape behind the dog layer, just to kind of give me an interesting border sweeping with the grass. You know, it's a little higher and thinner in some points. Just part of the design that I was thinking of for that. So that's what that element is. And then the rest of this is all just simple graphic layout with typography. My background solid is simply a rectangle that I drew and then applied a gradient to it. Okay, the gradient is a radial gradient, so it's kind of coming out from the middle and, you know, going in, it's an omnidirectional gradient. I picked some colors that were pleasant together, that worked well with green. You know, things you have to kind of think about. Blue and green are great. Blue and yellow are great. So I'm trying to keep a palette that is consistent and happy. Of course, white works with anything. So, you know, for the most part, there's nothing really crazy happening. But I'm keeping in mind all of these print elements that I had set up in the document. My bleeds, my safety margins. So notice that none of my text exceeds my safety margins, just in case that knife that cuts these things up goes a little bit inwards. I'm not going to lose any lettering on any of this. It also is a grid that helps me lay out my text so that everything feels balanced and distributed properly. And that's very important. If I didn't have this grid and I wasn't thinking about it, then my text might be kind of like all over the place, different widths and so on, which feels totally low rent and cheap. So you don't want that. You want to feel professional and solid, uniform, consistent, and just something as simple as that inner dotted line is helping us create a grid to make sure that there's consistency in those graphic elements like type. Um, I put um, oh, a mesh, a warp mesh on the text so that it has an arch, so that it feels like a nice sort of um, entry point for the top of this, mimicking almost the circle die that'll be cut out of this for the doorknobs. And then on the back, I have separated and let things stand out by putting in a darker background, which is the box on the top and the bottom, which goes again to the full bleed all the way to the edge and allows me to have call for actions on those, which are reversed out of it, revealing the white paper behind it or a light gray so that it really pops and has contrast. I brought in a few graphic elements actually from Photoshop. These dogs are found under the shape tool, and in the shape tool you have a whole bunch of cool shapes you can use. By default it only gives you about 20, but you can say show me all of them. I'd like to append that, which means add to it, and there's all kinds of really cool shapes. In this case I said I want the dog. Okay, so the dog is selected. I told the control bar here that I'd like a path. So I drew the dog, and I got my selection tool, the black one, selected it, copied it, came to Illustrator and hit paste. And it says, how do you want to paste it? Well, I'd like to paste it as something that is fully editable, so I chose compound shape. And there's my dog. It comes as a transparent path, so I just filled it with black and scaled it down, and there's my dog. I didn't have to worry about drawing it. I didn't have to worry about a live trace. But the thing is like Photoshop has cool shapes that Illustrator doesn't have. So there's totally ways to be working back and forth between those two. So that's where these dogs came from. I have some area text that I set up. I drew a box. I made sure that box didn't exceed my safety margin, right? So I've got all the information that I just made up off the top of my head. And then I got to an area where I thought we needed some quotes. The quotes are a lighter gray just to separate them from the body of text. And oh look, my little schnookums. It's so cute. And then another call to action, and then at the bottom here. And I can tell that I didn't center this. This is not centered. So I'm going to make sure I am aligned to my artboard and hit center. And now, oh, that's much better. Okay, so this piece is now ready for output. I've designed it. I'm feeling solid. I can confirm that my images that were raster are in the same color space of RGB. They are printable at 300 pixels per inch or higher, and I'm ready to turn this over to the printer. For the desktop printers, they love PDFs. PDFs are the hero in the world of sort of low budget printing. So how do we make a PDF? We go to File and we say we'd like to save a copy. And when we say save a copy, we'll name it something, and I'll name it door hanger print ready or whatever. Then under format at the bottom of that window, instead of an Illustrator file, you're going to choose an Adobe PDF. PDF is set. What artboards would you like to use? I'd like to use all of them. If you didn't for some reason, you could say I'd like to use a range and just choose 1 or number 2. But in this case, we need a front and a back. So I'm going to choose all, and that'll make sure that my front and back artboards will be part of this PDF. I'll hit save, and it takes me to a new pop-up window, which gives me some presets that I could choose. Illustrator default is a press ready default preset, but just if you needed to, you could confirm it by going to high quality print. A few things you need to do here under the options is to say I'd like to not preserve Illustrator editing capabilities because you don't want anyone touching your stuff. Right? You don't need someone going in there and messing with it. That's what the Illustrator file is for. And I'll talk about that in a second. So we uncheck preserve Illustrator editing capabilities. Embed page thumbnails doesn't matter. Optimize for web preview, fine, whatever. View PDF after saving is handy just because you get to look at it and make sure it all looks right. Okay, and then if this box is available, uncheck it. There are some issues with this PDF being created from top level layers where some things end up not showing up or there's some weird surprises. I make it a rule to never ever check create Acrobat layers from top level layers. So now if I hit save PDF, it goes through and analyzes everything, and then we'll take whatever viewer you have on your computer. In my case, it's preview, and we'll open the document up. And here's the front. And I'll scroll down. There's the back. And notice what's not showing up. Those guides, right? The dotted lines, the little die cut circle, and the cut. That is not showing up because that was initiated as a template layer where it was never intended to be printed. It was only intended for you to use while you work. And you know, color looks good, the grayscale looks good, everything's looking good. This is a great time to do your pre-press check. You look at your own PDF, you proofread it, make sure there's no spelling errors, make sure it makes sense, look in detail at your graphics and make sure everything looks tight and clean. This PDF is now ready to go to your digital printer. Whether it's an email or sent through an upload thing on a web page, or if you're actually taking it to the place yourself and giving it to somebody behind a counter, this PDF is the money, and it's a wonderful thing. The PDF, it's such a great compression because it maintains all of your vector information. It translates all your fonts into vector paths, so there's no font issue ever. It does a really wonderful job of maintaining color information, whether you're in RGB or CMYK. It's a super, super awesome format, and so many printers are taking to the PDF now. So the thing that you need to keep in mind is that there may be a chance or an opportunity or a cause for change to happen to your design. So it's always good to take the PDF and the original Illustrator file to the printer, right? So that way, just in case anything funky happens, you can fix it. And what I want for this project when you turn it in is I want an Illustrator file and a PDF file. Bingo. I don't want you to print anything out. You don't have to do that. We're just talking sort of hypothetically. So that should take care of that whole process. We now know how to set it up, how to pull in graphics, keeping in mind resolution and color space, and then output for PDF. And that should pretty much do it. I hope you have fun with this project. I look forward to seeing them. Good luck.